Home hijab, the dress of modesty in Islam. Ideal hijab, the dress of modesty in Islam. My friend, late Haji Yusuf Hussein Sharif of Arusha, Tanzania, had asked me to deliver a lecture on the subject of hijab purdah at the 8th annual seminar of the Golden Crescent Group, which was to be held at Lesotho on the 22nd and 23rd October 1977. At that time, I was busy making arrangements for our Hajj journey and wanted to be excused, but on his insistence, I had to agree. The result is the part 1 of this booklet, which contains the lecture and the questions and answers which followed. Just 3 months later, Haji Yusuf suddenly expired at Mombasa, Kenya. We belong to Allah, and to Him is our return. This part's Swahili translation by Sheikh Dikirio Kondo, editor. Saudi bill was published by the Bill Muslim Mission of Tanzania long ago, but the original remained pending because I wanted to make it more comprehensive. Once postponed, it remained forgotten until recently when the situation in the society in Africa and elsewhere demanded its publication. Now I have added the part 2, which contains further details, and as they say in Arabic, everything is pledged to its time. The booklet is now published after 14 years. I dedicate the thawab of writing this booklet to late Haji Yusuf H. Jeff. May Allah give him a high place near the 14 Masamin, as it is being published on the initiative of Haji Kurbanali Kaki of Dar es Salaam, who has also borne the expenses of its printing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him its reward and bestow on him prosperity and success in both worlds. Amen. Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi, Chief Missionary, Dar es Salaam, 10th Dhul Hijjah, 1412, 12th June 1992. Introduction. The essence of Islam is submission to the will of Allah, to make one's opinions, inclinations, and actions subservient to the commands of Allah, and it is not for a believer man or believer woman to have any choice in their affair when Allah and His Messenger decided a matter, and whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger, indeed he has strayed a manifest straying. 1. Therefore, if one asks why hijab or purdah is necessary, the only proper reply would be, because Allah and His Messenger have so decided, and that should be the end of all arguments, so far as the believing men and believing women are concerned. But in this age, hijab has been equated with backwardness of society and is regarded as a symbol of servitude of women. Many preachers think it is safer to avoid this subject in their lectures, but the Holy Prophet has said, when bid'ats appear and an alim does not say what he knows against that bid'at, then he is cursed by Allah, the angels, and the men. 2. Islam is a compact religion in which all rules and regulations are well synchronized, and if one wants to tamper with a certain part, the whole system would disintegrate. You have to accept the whole machinery as it is. You cannot choose from it. Islam believes in keeping men and women apart. It has entrusted males and females with completely separate responsibilities according to their natural ability. Man is obliged to earn livelihood for himself and his family. Woman has been entrusted with responsibility of managing domestic affairs and of bringing the children in Islamic background. The proponents of the liberty of women sneer at this division of labor, implying that proper upbringing of children is an inferior duty which degrades women. They do not realize that their new social order, which deprives the children of parental care and control, is a major factor in increasing juvenile delinquency, which in its turn is tearing the society apart. 3. Hijab as we know it was not in Arabia before Islam. It was introduced in Medina by specific injunctions of the Quran, long before non-Arabs came into the fold of Islam. Al-Mu'minin Aisha is reported to praise the women of Al-Ansar in these words, I did not see any women better than those of Al-Ansar, in their confirmation of Allah's book and the faith in the revelation. As soon as the chapter of An-Nur was revealed, containing the words, and they draw their head covers over their neck slits, and they were informed of it by their men, every one of them without exception took her robe shawl and wound it around her head, in conformity with, and faith in, what Allah had revealed in His book. They came next morning behind the Messenger SAW with those wound robes on heads as if a crow was sitting on their heads. 4. Therefore, the attempts of some self-appointed non-Muslim experts of Islam to show that hijab came to Islam when the Arabs conquered neighboring countries have no leg to stand. Modesty is one of the fundamentals of Islamic Sharia. Imam Jafar Estatic AS said, modesty is a part of a man. Verses of hijab. First, let us read the verses of the Quran on this subject. There are 3 verses in Surah An-Nur. Say unto the believer men that they cast down their gaze and guard their private parts. That is pure for them. Verily, Allah is well aware of all that you do. And say unto the believing women that they cast down their gaze and guard their private parts, and they display neither than adornment except till it becomes apparent, and they draw their kumar head covers over their jayab neck slits, and they display not their divinity except to their husbands, or their fathers, or the father of their husbands, or their brothers, or their sons, or the son of their husbands, or their brothers, or their brothers' sons, or their sisters' sons, or their women, or those whom their right hands possess, or the male servants void of sexual desires, or the children who have not yet attained the knowledge of women's seekers or nakedness, and they should not strike their feet so that what they hide of their zina becomes known, and turn you all on Allah, O you believers, so that you may be successful. 6. Explanation of important words. Zinat. What a human being uses to adorn himself / herself like ornaments, clothes, and similar things. Humor, with their humor, i.e. with their head covers. Plural of kimmer. Jayab. Plural of jabe, i.e. neckslit. Before the revelation of this verse, Arab women did not cover their necks, and necklines were usually low. They anticipated the 20th century fashion, so they were ordered to cover their necks with their head covers. Mahram, the relatives before whom a woman is allowed to display her zinat, are listed in this verse. They are called mahram. Mahram means those relatives by birth, fostership, or marriage with whom marriage is perpetually forbidden. Thus, father-in-law is mahram, but sister of wife is not mahram, because one may marry her after death of the wife or after divorcing her. The phrase, their fathers, includes paternal and maternal uncles. Ila ma zahara minha, except what becomes apparent of it. It will be explained later. The third verse in the same surah exempts a very old woman from putting on veil, such elderly women as are past the prospect of marriage. There is no blame on them if they lay aside their outer garments, provided they make not a display of their adornment. But it is good for them if they restrain themselves, and Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. 7. Explanation of words. Al-Kawid, those women who have passed the age of menses and childbearing and are not desirous of marriage because of their old age. Yadana, it denotes laying aside an outer garment like shawl or chadar, and not removing a dress like shirt or frock from body. This exception presupposes a general rule that the elderly women may lay aside their veil, shows that other cannot lay aside, and even elderly women have been encouraged not to lay aside their veil, because it is good for them and perhaps to set a good example to the younger generation. Then there are 4 verses in Surah Al-Ahzab: O women of the Prophet, you are not like any other woman, if you fear Allah. So be not soft in your speech, lest lust after you he in whose heart is disease, and speak a good speech, and stay in your houses, and display not yourselves like the display of the ignorance of your 8. Explanation. Women of the Prophet. This verse is addressed to the women of the Prophet, but all Muslim women are included in it, as so many verses addressed to the Holy Prophet are meant for the whole Ummah. For example, there is a verse, O Prophet, when you divorce your women, divorce them at their prescribed period. 9. It is an accepted principle that the rules of the Quran are for the whole Ummah, except where there is a clear indication that it is not meant for others. You are not like any other women. Muslim women are not like non-Muslim women. So, they should maintain their distinction and dignity. Like the display of the ignorance of yore, to stay in your houses is the dignity of Islam, and to display oneself is the trademark of the pre-Islamic ignorance and kufr. There is a hadith in Tafsir of Al-Qami with his chain of narrators from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq as from his father as that he said about the clause, like the display of the ignorance of yore, it implies that there surely will come another era of ignorance. Al-Lama at Tabatabai comments, it is a fine inference. 10. A question. Has that predicted era of the latter days, ignorance already arrived, and if you ask from them any goods, ask you of them from behind the curtain. Cure it is for your heats and for their hearts. 11. Explanation. This verse is about the wives of the Holy Prophet. It shows the ideal of purdah or hijab for a Muslim woman, that she should remain inside her house, and Garamar men should talk to her, if necessary, from behind a curtain. When the above verse was revealed, the companions asked the Prophet whether they should remain hidden from their daughters, mothers and sisters also. Then the following verse was revealed: there is no blame on them women about their fathers, nor their sons, nor their brothers, nor their brothers' sons, nor their sisters' sons, nor their own women, nor whom their right hands possess, and fear you, O women, Allah. Verily Allah is witness on everything. 12. O Prophet, say unto your wives, and your daughters, and the women of the believers, that they let down upon them their jilbab robe which covers head, face, and shoulders, so that they may be distinguished, so that they will not be troubled. Allah is oft forgiving, the most merciful. 13. Explanation. Jalabib, it is a plural of jilbab, is a robe bigger than head cover and shorter than shawl. The woman puts it on her head and it covers up to her breast. Jilbab means blanket and all things which cover the body like shawl, etc. And the meaning is that they should let down their robes upon them so that it covers their faces and shoulders. Jilbab should not be confused with kimmer head cover mentioned above, because jilbab is the outer robe worn over kimmer. 14. In fact, it is what is variously called chador, abaya, or purdah. The above verses guide the women as follows: they should stay in their homes Psalms be they did not talk as soft words with Garamar, and men there to be heard on the door to they did not know there's an and except to their marred, and any if they have to come out of their houses for any valid reason, they should cover their bodies with a veil. Also, it appears from the above verses that there are two stages of hijab. 1. Hijab of eyes. 2. Hijab of dress. Hijab of eyes. The believer men must cast down their gaze, and believer women must cast down their gaze. None is allowed to look at the opposite sex, unless he or she is within the prohibited degree mahram. As the man is required to struggle for earning the livelihood, he is not told to hide his body except to a certain extent. Still, he is obliged to cast down his gaze, and not to look at Gair Mahram women. Woman can easily keep herself covered and hidden because her sphere of activity is her home. Therefore, she was told to cover her entire body, as well as cast down her gaze and not to look at Gair Mahram men. There are many ahadith which say that glance is a poisoned arrow from the arrows of Shaitan. 15. Beware of glancing, because it sows lust in the heart of the glances, and enough is it for a mischief. 16. Another hadith says that the Holy Prophet SAW said, "Whoever fills his eyes looking at women unlawfully, Allah will raise him on the day of resurrection with nails of fire driven in his eyes, until judgment is given concerning the whole mankind. Then he will be ordered to be driven into the fire." 17. Numerous ahadith declare that the glance after the first glance is an arrow of Shaitan and is haram. Our boys and girls should ponder on these verses and traditions, in order to realize that wearing hijab or scarf is not a license to look freely at the opposite sex. Hijab of dress. We may discuss this subject under the following headings: Extent of covering. The dress must cover the woman's whole body, except what has been specifically exempted. According to authentic ahadith of both Shia and Sunni books, the whole body of woman is aura. The woman is aura. 18. And what is the meaning of aura? The genitals are called aura because it is a shame to look at them, and everything which a man hides because of pride or shame is called aura, and the women are aura. According to Al-Wadu al-Wathqa by Sayyid Kazim Yazi, on which are footnotes of all great mujtahids of recent times, covering is of two kinds. 1. First, the covering which is wajib in itself at all times, and it means a. Hiding of or attain private parts, front and behind from all people, male and female, maram and gair maram, balig and gair balig. Exception: husband and wife may look at each other. Also, a very small child is exempted from this restriction, as it is haram to uncover those parts before any person, so it's haram to look at them. It is wajib for a woman to cover her whole body except face and hands up to wrists, which will be explained later, from all persons except her husband and mahram. Face and hands. If there is possibility that someone will look at her with lust, then it is wajib to cover the hands as well. Roman 2. If there is no such possibility, then it is awat to cover them, according to fatwa of Sayyid Kazim Yazdi, Sayyid Musan Hakim Tabatabai, Sayyid Muhammad Husseini Sharudi, Sayyid Abul Qasim Q.E., Sayyid Muhammad Kazim Shariat Madari, Sayyid Muhammad Rida Gulpe Ghani, and Sayyid Hayy Milani. Roman 3. It is haram to look with lust at the body, face or hands of a man or woman, be he or she a maram or gair maram. Exception: wife and husband. The second kind of covering concern the salat. Man must cover his oratain even if there is no one there to look at him, and it ought to cover between navel and knees. Woman must cover her whole body including hair and ears except face from forehead up to the chin in length, and between the thumb and middle finger in width, hand from wrist downwards and feet up to ankles. It is wajib to cover a portion of these accepted parts min bab al muqaddama. It is not necessary for her to cover in prayer her ornaments or makeup on face. If there is someone who is looking or may look with lust at her face, hands or feet during salat, then it is wajib for her to cover these parts also, not because of salat, but because of the general rule mentioned earlier. 19. Face and hands. In the first verse it is said that the women display not their zin at adornment except what becomes apparent of it. There is a difference of opinion about the meaning of this exception. There is a group, both in the Sunni and the Shia sects, which says that ma zahar minhum means the face and hands, which according to them a woman is allowed to keep open. Another group says that it refers to only that incidents when any part of her body adornment becomes uncovered because of uncontrollable factors such as blowing of wind, or out of necessity such as the outer clothes themselves. Leaving aside the Sunni traditions, there are 4 ahadith in Shia books which directly or indirectly support the first interpretation. First hadith is from Mardak bin Ubaid from Imam Imam from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq as, that this exception covers face, hands and feet below ankles. Second is from Qasim bin Awwab from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq as, that it means antimony and ring implying eyes and hands. Third is from Sadin bin Muslim from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq as, that the exception is of ring and bracelet implying hands only. Now a man in the first hadith, Qasim bin Awwa in the second, and Sadin bin Muslim in the third are unknown persons. Nobody knows how much reliance can be put on their words. The fourth hadith is from Amr bin Shimr from Jabir al-Ansari, that Jabir said that he went with the Prophet to the house of Fatima as, and saw that she had become pale. This Amr bin Shimr was an ardent liar and Sunni, and Shia ulama unanimously say that he used to forge hadith and attribute them to Jabir Jufi and others. Moreover, this hadith goes against the authentic ahadith which prove that Fatima as covered herself before allowing a blind companion of the Prophet to enter her house, and that she did not want her dead body to be put on an open plank as was the custom at that time because people would know her height. Anyhow, it is only an academic difference. Coming to practical side, all ulama without any exception say that if there is a danger that people will look at her face with lusty intention, then it is wajib for her to cover her face. And if there is no danger, then according to one group it is wajib to cover the face, and according to the other it is awat. Now it is for a woman to decide between Allah and herself whether such a danger exists in this enlightened society or not. Beginnas, the dress must be thick enough so as not to show the color of skin or the shape of the body. It is necessary to remind our women folk that the purpose of hijab is not putting on any cloth, but to hide the body. Transparent or thin clothes which reveal the color of skin or shape of body are absolutely forbidden. The Holy Prophet SAW said, inter alia in a hadith, their women will be dressed, yet naked. On their heads will be like the humps of lean camels. Do curse them, for they are truly cursed. 20. The Holy Prophet, on seeing a bride in a thin dress, said, a woman who dressed like this is not the one who believes in the Surah An-Nar. Woe is an S. The dress must not be tight to describe the curves and shape of a woman's body. Overall appearance. 1. The purpose of the dress is to conceal zinat. It naturally follows that this cover itself should not be of a kind to attract onlookers to the woman inside. Zinat cannot be hidden by a dress which makes people turn their eyes toward the wearer. It is this type of dress which is forbidden in this ayat of the Quran. Bedizen not yourselves with the bedizenment of the ignorance of your. 3. Woman should not wear a dress which is generally known to be a male costume, nor vice versa. The Holy Prophet has cursed the men who act like women and the women who act like men. 21.3. It should not be a dress of fame, pride and vanity. Wearing excessively dirty or rugged cloth to demonstrate denial of self or one's rejection of the norms of society is not allowed. The showiness and pride are improper in the eyes of Islam and are rejected by Islamic ethics. The Prophet said, whoever wears a dress of fame in this world, Allah will clothe him with a dress of humiliation on the day of resurrection, then set it on fire. Importance of hijab. To see how much importance is given to hijab in Shariat, it is enough to see how other rules and regulations are modified and changed to preserve the principle of hijab. 1. Praying in the mosque is better than in a house, and its reward goes on increasing as the gathering increases. But for the woman, the opposite is correct. There is more reward in a house than in the veranda of the house. 2. Jamaat prayer. One of the basic conditions of Jamaat prayer is that there should be no barrier between Imam and Mamam and between one Mamam and the other. But his order is not for the women. If they want to pray with Jamaat, they should pray behind a barrier. 3. Adhan and Ikama before the daily 5 prayers are very much emphasized, but women are exempted from it. If they opt to say Adhan and Ikama, they can do so when there is no Gurmaram to hear their voice. Otherwise, it is not allowed, though they may say it in whisper. 4. It is wajib for men to recite first 2 rakas in Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha prayers loudly. Women are required to pray in whisper only. 5. Friday prayer is wajib aini in the presence of the Imam as or his appointed deputy, and wajib takhiri according to many ulama during the gaybat. But women are exempted for this wajib. Ghusl mayyit. It is necessary that the person giving funeral bath be a Muslim. But if a Muslim woman dies and there are male Gair Maram Muslims and female Christians, then the Christian's woman should be asked to take a bath and then give ghusl to the Muslim woman. Another alim, Muhakkik Hili, does not agree with it. He says the ghusl made is an ibadah, and it needs intention of qabat and ilala, which from a kafir and not correct. So instead of allowing Muslim men should give her ghusl, he says that the dead body should be buried without ghusl. There is great reward in carrying the bier of a Muslim and walking in his funeral procession. Women are exempted from it. In Iram, the woman is not allowed to cover her face, but, as Muhakkik Thanik Karaki has written, This rule does not mean that seeing or being seen by Gair Maram is allowed. Ayatollah Bulgasabhui writes that when the woman wants to hide herself from Gair Maram and Iram, she may pull down a corner of her Iram on her face and chin, but it is awat that she put her hand or some other thing to keep the cloth away from her face. 9. Jihad, fighting in the way of Allah, is the most liked ibadah, act of worship, but women are exempted from fighting. So, we find that whenever any general rule comes in conflict with the rule of hijab, it is not the hijab which gives way. It is always the conflicting rule which is sacrificed for the principle of hijab. Hijab for men. It is good to draw the attention of the audience to the requirements of dress of man also. These basic requirements have been mentioned above, and they may be enumerated as follows: 1. Man must cover his ortain at all times, from all persons except his wife or a very small child. 2. He must cover his ortain in the prayer. 3. His cloth should not be tight so as to describe what it is supposed to hide. 4. It should not be thin so as to show the color of the skin of the parts which should be covered. 5. The dress should not be like a costume generally considered a female costume. 6. They should not be clothes of fame, pride of vanity. 7. They should not be made of pure silk. 8. Man is not allowed to wear even impure gold. Questions and answers. What? Is it allowed for a veiled girl to attend co-education schools? Answer. If she observes all the rules of hijab and is sure that no one would look at her with lust, then it is allowed. If yes, then she would not be able to answer the questions put forward to her by the teacher. She would have to whisper. Answer. Talking to Gair Maram becomes haram, forbidden when there is a danger that the said Gair Maram may get lustful ideas by hearing the voices of the women. 3. Can a woman participate fully in social and economic life remaining in purdah? Answer. Yes, provided she does not exceed the limits laid down by the Sharia of Islam. Remember that Islam does not allow free mingling of males and females. 4. In many societies, both men and women have no work. For example, in an agricultural society, as in Tanzania, both men and women have to work in fields without which the family would starve. What would you suggest under this condition? Answer. If you want to follow Islam, you must change. In fact, the notion that in an agricultural society a woman must work in the fields is based on short-sightedness. We see women working in Tanzania and then generalize it as a principle of sociology. We forgot that the countries which are feeding the world, like USA, Canada, Australia, etc., are agricultural countries, but their agriculture does not depend on their women working in the fields. So, it is not agriculture, per se, which demands women's back-breaking labor. It is backwardness which compels Tanzania women to work in the fields and not its agricultural society. And we may say that Islam does not like this backwardness. It wants these ladies to return to their proper place, that is home. In other words, Tanzanians' society will have to change by following Islamic principles if it wants to march forward. 5. Alims have been told to oppose bid'at. At what stage should they do it? At early stage or later stages? Answer. At every stage. 6. Muslim women in different countries put on different types of veil. Which type of veil is in keeping with the principle of Islam? Answer. Any type that would suit them provided the main purpose of hijab, i.e. hiding of their bodies, is served. 7. Is it not necessary for our women to go and obtain knowledge in medicine or pharmacy, etc.? A woman patient would prefer to be examined by a female doctor rather than a male one. She should also express herself more freely to a female doctor. There are only 2 women's colleges in the world in medicine, and due to the shortage of women doctors, it is necessary for our women to go and join other colleges, and therefore they have to come out of purdah. Answer. She should try to go to a women's college only. Some ladies, without veil, have kept their dignity. So why all this? Answer. Purdah of eyes and purdah of dress, both are compulsory for all Muslim women. The dignity of a Muslim woman in the eyes of Allah depends on purdah. For example, see the ayat which says, "You are not like any other women." It is the distinction and dignity of Muslim women to stay in your houses. If we try to separate their dignity from purdah, then our outlook is not in conformity with God's preference. By observing only the purdah of eyes, the ladies mentioned in the question are obeying only part of the divine law. 9. I believe in Islam that man and women will be treated equally tomorrow on the day of judgment. Now, if that is the case, in view of the present inflation, why cannot a woman work and help the man in running a home? Answer. Do not be extravagant and try to remain within the limits of the income earned by the husband. However, a woman can help increasing the income by such means which do not require her to discard hijab. Equal treatment on the day of judgment does not mean equal burden in this life. Should parents abstain from recommending purdah to their daughters lest she is forced after marriage by her in-laws to take it down? Answer. As far as she is with you, you are to perform your duties and responsibilities. What What happens at a later stage when she is with her husband is not your responsibility. If you are afraid that after 1 week you will not get any food, would you start starving from today? 11. Is it respectable for a girl to have her veil removed by her in-laws? Answer: no. It is haram. She has to refuse. 12. Purdah is wajib for a girl, but if the husband forbids her to do wajib things, what can she do then? Is it wajib to listen to her husband? Answer: no. She is not to listen to him if he tells her to commit a sin, and the husband gets twice the sin for forcing her to remove purdah or do any haram thing. 13. Accepting that woman's place is at home. Should a wife in Western countries be allowed to work in order to help her husband whose income alone is not adequate? Answer: I think one thing must be clarified here before answering this question. Al-Tawbah bid al-Hayra is one of the 7 great sins. If someone is living in a place where he is free to practice his religion, and he willingly migrates to a place where he will not be free to observe religious commands, it is called Al-Tawbah bid al-Hayra. Literal meanings: to become a nomad after Hayrat. Many of our brethren had to go to Western countries because of the circumstances beyond their control. They should not be blamed, but there are others who have opted for such countries just for worldly gains. They bear the great responsibility, not only of their own akhirat, but of their children and future generation also. Now, coming to the question, the first advice to such people is not to go to such countries where they cannot meet their expenses without wife's earning. If they are there, and it is unavoidable, then the answer to question no. 9 is applicable here. The Islamic Society. The Part 1 was written in October 1977. 15 months later came the Islamic Revolution of Iran, and Islamic rule was established there on 11/1979. It was a world-shaking phenomenon which changed the direction of history throughout the world. Not only did it create religious awakening in every Muslim community, but also gave courage to downtrodden and oppressed masses everywhere and up against the exploiters and oppressors. The visible effect of the Islamic Revolution was to turn the direction of the youths from Western culture to Islamic norms. Young Muslims boys now feel proud to keep beard, and young girls have rediscovered the dignity of Islamic hijab. And it is happening not only in the Eastern countries, but even in the West. So far so good. We, of the older generation, are really happy to see this pleasant change. At the same time, it is necessary, rather essential, to guide the youth to the proper Islamic path, charting for them the full course of their spiritual journey. It will enable them to see how much they have progressed and how far they have to go yet. Before going ahead, I should mention an important principle of Islamic ideology, and that is the interrelation of Islamic laws and Islamic ethics. Islamic laws teach the minimum a person is required to do, and transgression of which entails sins and is sometimes considered a crime. Islamic ethics take a man from that starting point to the highest peak of spiritual perfection. If a man is sick and weak, he first needs treatment to cure his disease. After that, he needs special regimen of diet, exercise, and tonics to restore his body, to bring him to the peak of his health and strength. The same principle applies in the spiritual field. Islamic laws keep man free from ills of sin and crime, while Islamic ethics show him the way to noble spiritual perfection and strength. From Islam's point of view, it is not enough to merely ordain some basic laws to protect the believers from sins and leave them at that. A weak patient, even when cured of a disease, is an easy target of further attacks unless his strength is restored. Nor has Islam merely exhorted its followers to strive to reach high moral standards without prescribing some rules to prevent them from negative influence. Of what use will be tonics if body is riddled with debilitating diseases? Thus, Islamic laws and Islamic ethics are interlinked. They are different stages of the same spiritual journey. Islam knows that spiritual level of all people is not the same. Therefore, it has chosen for us the highest ethical and spiritual ideas. At the same time, it has laid down minimum requirements which one cannot transgress without exposing himself to spiritual peril. Let us look, for example, at the concept of charity. A Muslim is responsible for providing sustenance to his immediate family, parents, self, wife, and children. It is only after meeting those obligatory expenses that he is exhorted to spend on charity. Allah says in the Quran, and they ask you as to what they should spend, say what you can spare. 22. This is the starting point of charity. But suppose you have some food just sufficient to satisfy the hunger of your own family, and your brother's or neighbor's family has nothing to eat. Islamic ethics exhorts you to share that little food with them. Of course, your family will remain half hungry, but it not better that 10 people should share in that little food, rather than 5 eating their fill while the other 5 remain starving. Allah says, and they prefer other over themselves though poverty may afflict them. 23. The stage of charity is high commendable and is a hallmark of Islam. Yet, it is not the ultimate destination, the final goal. If we want to see the ideal charity, we will have to study the lives of the Holy Prophet and his family members, peace and mercy of Allah be on them all. Look at the verses of the chapter 76 Ad-Dar, and you will see Ali, Fatima, Al-Hassan, Al-Hussein, and the maid Fida fasting 3 days consecutively without taking any food, and every night giving their bread to a poor man, an orphan, and a captive. 3 nights they fed hungry persons and stayed for more than 72 hours without a single morsel. Allah praises them in these words: they fulfill vows and fear a day the evil of which shall be spreading far and wide, and they give food out of love for him to the poor and the orphan and the captive. We only feed you for Allah's sake. We desire from you neither reward nor thanks. 24. Many Orientalists, who are generally oblivious or ignorant of this interrelation of the Islamic laws and the Islamic ethics, take it upon themselves to pronounce judgment on Islam, unfavorably comparing its laws, i.e. the minimum requirements, with the highest ethical standpoints of Christianity, and then pontificating that Islamic moral teachings have shortcomings. And unfortunately, the same disoriented outlook is inculcated in most of those students who study Islam directly or indirectly under these non-Muslim Orientalists. They look at Islam not as a single living entity, but as a lifeless collection of disjointed limbs. Not surprisingly, when such people look at fiqh jurisprudence, they do not see it as an essential part of the whole Islam, but consider it the alpha and omega of Islam, the total Islam. The jurist's views on hijab. Be as it may. Now let us come back to our original topic, hijab or purdah. Like all the Islamic tenets, its starting point is given in the fiqh jurisprudence, which has been described in part 1. To refresh the memory, I give here some relevant rulings of 3 of our great mujtahideen. Ayat-ul Matthew have open Malka rights, Missile 1233. It did to roll and hide her whole body except in the 2 bones of all man kept her husband and Moran. Barara did to hide her face in the punk to even to Moran say except the husband and to Moran may look at her with indulged letter. Rather they were to hide her evidence and bones of their Moran all times then alternating a matter of wajib. And it is not wajib at all on a man to keep himself in purdah. Masala 1232. It is haram for a woman to look at a man except at his face, head, neck, and the feet. Apparently she may look at these parts provided it is not done with sensual pleasure, nor is there any danger of falling into haram, although it is all ought not to look at these 2 even without sensual pleasure. 25. These rulings tell us 3 things. 1. About the whole body except face and palms, it is definitely wajib to cover. 2. About face and palms when there is a possibility of someone looking at her with sensuous desires, it is definitely wajib to cover them. 3. About face and palms when there is no such danger, it is wajib to cover. Thus, according to Ayatollah Al-Azm al-Kawi, it is wajib for a woman to cover her face and hands from gair mahram men in all conditions. Now, a muqallid has the option of either following this ayat or referring to the next alim mujtahid and then to the next, if he has given fatwa on that matter. Ayatollah Al-Azm al-Khomeini is said to allow the woman not to cover their faces and hands if there is no danger of any man looking at her with lustful intention or of falling into haram. Thus, many of our girls acted on that fatwa. However, the same Al-Khomeini says that men are totally forbidden to look at a gair mahram woman's face and hands. He writes, Masala 18. There is no doubt that a man is not allowed to look at the hair and body of a gair mahram woman except her face and palms, be it with or without sensual pleasure or danger of falling into haram. Likewise, it is haram to look at her face and palms too if it is with sensual pleasure or the said danger. As for looking at her face and palms without sensual pleasure or danger of falling into haram, there are 2, rather 3, opinions. 1. That is allowed unconditionally. 2. That is haram unconditionally. 3. 26. Unfortunately, those who reported the fatwa about the women's responsibility did not think it necessary to even mention that it is obligatory for men not to look at her face and hands at all. A serious question may be asked loudly. Even if an organizer of a mixed gathering is sure of himself, how can he be sure of the others? As for Ayatollah Al-Azm Sayyid Muhammad Rida Gulpi Ghani, his fatwa is as follows. Masala 2442. It is haram for a man to look at the body or hair of a gair mahram woman, whether it is with intention of sensuous enjoyment or not. Likewise, it is haram to look at the body or hair of a girl below 9 years of age if such a glance may usually incite lusty feelings. And it is haram to look at their faces and hands with intentions of sensuous enjoyment. Rather, the prohibition of looking at their face and hands, even without intention of sensuous enjoyment, is not without strong proof. Likewise, it is haram for a woman to look at the body of a Gurmara man. 27. This is the minimum hijab, and it is the starting point. Now that our girls in East Africa and Western countries have started wearing scarf and covering their bodies, they have taken the first step on the path of Islamic hijab. But they should realize that it's only the first step. They should follow and implement the second part of the ruling by covering their faces and hands every time there is a danger of someone looking at them with sensuous intention. Remember, it is the definite ruling, not a matter of ihtiyat. They should try their utmost to proceed on this path, keeping the ultimate goal in their view. It is very regrettable that many preachers and speakers never present the ideology of hijab in its true perspective, and do not explain even this minimum requirement fully and completely. As a result, the ladies do not realize that they at present are at the starting line of this spiritual journey and that they should strive to proceed further ahead. Ideal hijab. The ultimate or ideal hijab may be understood from the following traditions. Once when the Holy Prophet SAW was in his house and the mothers of the believers, Salama and Maymuna, were with him, a blind companion, Abdullah ibn Maktum, sought permission to come to the Prophet SAW. The Prophet SAW told the above-mentioned mothers of the believers to hide themselves. They said, but he is blind. The Prophet SAW said, are you too blind? Would not you see him? 28. Ali as said, once a blind man in company of the Holy Prophet SAW asked permission of Fatima as to enter her house. She stopped him until she covered herself. The Messenger of Allah SAW said, why did you stop him? He cannot see you. She said, although he cannot see me, but I can see him, and moreover, if I do not hide, he might feel my scent. The Holy Prophet SAW said, I bear witness that you are a part of me. 29. Once the Holy Prophet SAW asked her, what is the best for a woman? She replied, that she does not see a man and no man sees her. The Prophet SAW said, offspring, one from the other. 30. Ali as said, once the Messenger of Allah SAW asked his companions about woman what she was. They said, she is or a thing to hide. He said, at what time does she come nearest to her Lord? They did not know. When Fatima as heard the question, she said, she becomes nearest to her Lord when she adheres to the innermost part of her house. The Messenger of Allah SAW said, I bear witness that you are a part of me. 31. Also we know that she had asked Ali as to put her dead body in a covered coffin, as she did not like the idea of strangers looking at her dead body and knowing her height. After the tragedy of Karbala, the family members of Imam Hussein as were taken captive and paraded in the markets of Kufa and Damascus without veil. When the lady Zainab as, sister of Imam Hussein as, was made to stand together with other ladies and children before Yazid in a court attended by 700 dignitaries and hundreds of onlookers, Zainab as at one point got her chance to deliver her famous khutbah speech stingingly attacking Yazid, exposing his barbarism, perfidy, and debauchery. One of the indictments was contained in these words, is it justice, O son of the freed slaves, that you have kept your women and the girls in seclusion, and have paraded the daughters of the messengers of Allah, mercy of Allah be on him and his progeny, their veil torn away and their faces visible to all, their faces are peered at by all, be he far or near, lowly or noble. 32. Some people have taken it upon themselves to preach to the ladies that if they cover their bodies, keeping the faces and hands open, then they are free to mingle with gents in religious gatherings and elsewhere. But as a matter of fact, Islam does not approve mingling of gair-matram men and women at all. After all, hijab of dress does not exempt one from hijab of eyes. Also, it has been described above that it is unanimously wajib for a woman to cover her face if there is any possibility that someone would look at her with lusty enjoyment, or if there is any danger of falling in haram. Even if an office bearer of a jama, union or association is sure of himself that he would not look at any lady with lusty intentions or sensuous enjoyment, how can he be sure about other men in the gathering, especially the young folk? There is an interesting point to ponder upon. We know that a man is obliged to cover from his navel to the knees only. Then why don't we exhort the gents to come to the community gathering if not in the markets and streets wearing half pants only? Why is that they are not preached against wearing shirts, full trousers, coats, ties, and socks? If the men are not told to stick to the minimum covering, why the women are exhorted to stick to the minimum or even less than minimum? Why are not they explained the complete fatwa in its true perspective? Religiously speaking, Is such preaching progressive or retrogressive? The Muslim ladies and gents must observe the hijab of the eyes as well as hijab of the dress. It would be travesty of hijab for a girl to mix freely with gair maram boys while wearing a scarf or head cover. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us tawfiq to observe and obey His commandments with sincerity and devotion. What? Holy Quran 33:36-2. Safinat al-Bahar, Vol. 1p. 63-3. For detailed description of this topic, please see my book, The Islamic Family Life, Revised Edition, published by WOFIS. Tehran, Iran. Still available online at http://www.alislam.org/family24 at Duru al-Manthur, Vol. 5p. 42. Al-Kashaf, Vol. 3p. 62-5. Safinatu al-Bahar, Vol. 1b. 360. Holy Quran 24:30-31-7. Holy Quran 24:60. Holy Quran 33:32-33-9. Holy Quran 65:1. C. Al-Kashaf, Vol. 4p. 117-10. Al-Mizan, Vol. 16p. 316-11. Holy Quran 33:53-12. Holy Quran 33:55-13. Holy Quran 33:59-14. Ad-Duru al-Manthur, Vol. 5p. 42-15. Safinatu al-Bahar, Vol. 2p. 596. Ad-Duru al-Manthur, Vol. 5p. 42-16. Safinatu al-Bahar, Vol. 2p. 596-17. Irid, p. 171-18. Kanzu al-Amal, Vol. 16, ch. 6p. 411. Hadith No. 45,158-19. Al-Awatu al-Wathqa 20. Kanzu al-Amal, Vol. 16, ch. 6p.401. Hadith No. 45,106. See also Hadith No. 45,013 on p. 383-21. Irid, p. 385. Hadith No. 45,020-22. Holy Quran 2:219-23. Holy Quran 59:924. Holy Quran 76:7-825. Minhaj as-Salihin, Vol. 2, p. 260-26. Tararu el-Wasila, Vol. 2, p. 243-27. Tazihu el-Masil, 61st ed. Muharram 1410, Qum, pp. 412-413-28. Ad-Duru al-Manthur, Vol. 5, p. 42-29. Haru el-Anwar, Vol. 43, p. 91-30. Idad, p. 84-31. Idad, p. 85-32. Al-Ithajaj, Vol. 2, p. 308. Get PDF 3, get EPUB 4, get Mobi 5. Topic tags. Hijab 7. Authors S. Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi 1. Publisher S. The Muslim Mission of Tanzania 6. Source URL https://www.alislam.org. Articles Hijab dress Modesty Islam Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi comment 0.